The TaylorMade Sim hybrids proved hugely popular on tour last year, thanks to the likes of DJ and Rory regularly putting them in play. Now they're back for 2021 and the line has actually been expanded to add a new Sim 2 offering as well as the Sim 2 Max. So, what are the differences between the two models and how do they compare to last year's Sim Max offering? Let's go and find out. Now first up I've got the new Sim 2 Max. This comes in to directly replace the Sim Max that we saw last year, and to be honest, in terms of visuals it's pretty similar to what we saw last year. Over the ball, some of the paint lines and the colourings are different, but in terms of shaping, visually it's not that much different, and I have to say I do like that because I think they did nail it last year. I have to say I love the sound and the feel of this club. I think that's been pretty characteristic across the Sim 2 range. That literally went so straight. I have to say when you catch this, the ball fly is beautiful. I'm just not sure it's quite as consistent as I want it to be so far. That literally nearly landed on the last golf ball. Now I've got more comfortable with this, I have to say I'm hitting it pretty well. So first of all, I have to say just how much I love the way this looks. It sits fantastic behind the ball and overall the visuals are just really nice. It's kind of like one of those clubs that you just want it to work because it looks so good. Then if we look at the data, in terms of distance I was really happy with this. It averaged out at 199 yards, so for a 3 hybrid that sits pretty good in my bag between my 4 hybrid and my 3 wood. Now in terms of other variables such as spin and launch, I would say these are slightly more inconsistent than I would want. But I haven't been custom fit into this club at all, so I probably would expect that at this point. Then off the back of that, to be honest, the dispersion was pretty good. It definitely could be tightened in a little bit more, but I think, again, if we got that shaft custom fit for me, we would see those numbers right where I'd want them. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with the performance of this at this point, but let's go hit the Sim 2 and see how it compares. So the Sim 2 is pretty different in terms of visuals, and that's definitely something TaylorMade wanted to add into their lineup this year. It's more iron-like and it's more compact, and it's also very different on the crown of the club because it's all black. We haven't got any of that white paint on the front or the texture on the crown. Now typically for me, I do like a traditional rounded hybrid, so I have to say I'm quite surprised how much I like the shape of this. Now a noticeable difference here is this is a 70g reg shaft compared to the 60g reg we had in the Sim 2 Max. I'm not sure you would even recognise this as a TaylorMade hybrid straight off just because of how different it looks. I like the ball flight on that, but I don't think it flew as far as the Sim Max did. Definitely flies a little lower than we saw in the Max. Now it's important to note here, because this is designed for that better player who typically prefers the visual of an iron, we've also got the offering of an adjustable shaft here, so you can change the loft to get that dialed in really to where you want it. Just feel like I can control this a bit more. I think the dispersion is noticeably a bit more tight so far. This definitely feels different too, and definitely sounds different. It's almost like a little bit softer off the face. Even when I feel like I strike these well, they're just not getting anywhere near pitching in the same spots that the Sim 2 Max was. Definitely more online though. So it didn't really perform quite as I expected it to. In fact, the launch angle on this was actually higher than it was with the Sim 2 Max, and I definitely didn't think that was going to happen. I would say on average though the peak height was a bit lower, and the flight was also a little bit more consistent than we saw with the Sim 2 Max. Now in terms of distance, this was slightly down, so it averaged at 190 compared to 199. I definitely would have expected this because it's a smaller, more compact head, and I think on those off-center strikes you didn't quite get as much forgiveness as you did with the Max. Now in terms of spin, there wasn't much to split them at all. I think like 50 RPM on average, which was quite surprising as well. I definitely would have thought this would be slightly lower. Probably the most surprising thing though was just how good the dispersion was with this. I thought it was going to be a lot harder to hit, and although I saw a drop down in distance from not quite as much forgiveness, the dispersion was really tight and really impressive. Right, let's go back to last year's offering now and see how the Sim Max stacks up against the new Sim 2 models. I've got the same shaft in this setting with the Sim 2 Max, however this is a 70 gram stiff rather than a 60. Now that is usually what I would use, so let's just see what the difference is. In terms of visuals, I still really like the way this sits. I know we've had a few tweaks this year, which I do like, and I do like the darker colour on the top, but this still sits really nicely behind the ball. Flight's a little inconsistent. It seemed to be flying a bit lower at the start, but that went really high. I have to say, I'm hitting this pretty nice. So I've hit all 10 shots now, and I'm pretty surprised by the numbers actually. I thought I was striking this pretty well, but the distance has come out on average at 187, which is lower than both of the Sim 2 offerings. Now my longest shot was up at 193, but I had some shots dropping down as low as 184. So definitely quite a big difference there, and ultimately that's going to bring that average down. I would say though this was probably spinning a little bit more consistently, however the spin was a lot higher, averaging in the 4,000s compared to like the low 3,000s we saw with the other two. In terms of height, this was pretty similar to the other two, but we did have a slightly steeper descent angle, so it was landing a bit softer. Then if we look at dispersion, this was probably the worst of the three with the biggest miss. However, it was a lot more neutral down the target line compared to the Sim 2 Max. So I'm definitely pretty surprised by the results there. I didn't think I would have gained as much distance as I did, and I definitely didn't think that the Sim 2 was going to be the one with the tighter dispersion. And I'm kind of upset because I just love the look of the Sim 2 Max so much. I really wanted that to perform the best for me, but it definitely was the Sim 2, which I didn't expect at all because I never really go for an iron-like hybrid. Overall, I think you're definitely going to notice quite big variables between these two offerings. I think it's really good that TaylorMade have added this extra option to their lineup. So it's definitely worth going out, testing them out and seeing how they perform. Because as we've seen here, it might not be what you expect. Right, that's all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below or send me a line on Twitter or Instagram. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and head back for some new content soon. And if you're after more golf content, head to the National Club Golfer social media channels for more.